Hey, good morning or good evening, or depends where you are in the world. We're on Jason Cooper's live chats. I'm a sales strategist, sales coach. I like to speak with people around the world that have something different to say and something different to offer. And my very special guest today is Jamie Furlong from Follow the Boat. And the reason I want to get Jamie on board, for all of those people that are doing the 9 to 5 and they're working really hard in the world, but they want to dream big and they want to dream differently. Some people actually do that. And some people have actually said, right, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do something different. And I'm going to explore the world. And I'm going to see all different cultures and different nationalities and find the remotest places in the world and also some of the busiest places in the world. And Jamie's actually done that. But before we actually start to talk to Jamie and find out a little bit more about him, let's go to this.
Welcome to Sabah, on the magical island of Borneo, Malaysia. 6 boats are taking part in the only rally happening in the world right now, sailing hundreds of miles into the notorious Sulu Sea. There are no marinas, no boatyards. We're going to be exploring an area few other sailboats venture, and it's not without its risks. Due to pirate activities across the Malaysia-Philippines border, we're being escorted by ESCOM, the Eastern Sabah Security Command. There is a night curfew for all vessels in the area, so passages are only made in daylight.
Wow, that is really cool. I love that. And for anyone watching or anyone watching on replay, that is absolutely extraordinary. So, Jamie, really appreciate that. And I've actually known you for a good number of years, probably most of my life, funnily enough. And I'm a day older than you. So, look, let everyone know the cat out of the bag is you're my cousin. So, but I wanted to get you on board today because what you've done is absolutely phenomenal. And for people watching that want to dream big and are stuck in their offices and stuck in COVID or whatever, that wherever they are in the world, this is absolutely phenomenal. So, really taking a look back, like I've got a script. I probably don't really need to do it because I've know you so well. So look, you've sort of given up the corporate career and the corporate lifestyle back in sort of 2002, and you went sailing across I think it's the English Sea, and then you did the Atlantic towards the Caribbean somewhere, so I believe, and you just got that bug to sail. And ironically enough, you met your now longtime girlfriend, so on and so forth. And what actually happened is that you went to Turkey and with the intention to buy a yacht. And that's exactly what you did. So, Jamie, can you tell me a little bit more about the background story and how and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, Jay, thank you for having me on. I feel quite honoured, actually. I've been watching some of your live chats and you've got some pretty established people on. So I feel quite honoured to be invited. So appreciate that. Okay, so, I mean, where do you want me to start? I mean, I suppose to help people put into context what I've done in relation to their own situation, I went to college, I studied a business degree, and it was a Bachelor of Science, so it was quite statistically based. So when I went into work, I studied at Manchester and then moved down to London, and I moved into market and media research. So really that was my forte, was media research, and started with a big research agency, then a big ad agency. And then with my knowledge from media research, I then joined two friends, Gav and Rob, and they were setting up business. And I think that was probably my first jump into the unknown, was to quit what was going to be, I think, a fairly successful career, take the risk and go into business with my two buddies. So I did that for a few years. And the product I was working on was a market research tool. But then I kind of ended up in a sort of sales role, and I wasn't particularly comfortable with that. So
it was like SurveyMonkey, wasn't it? If I remember rightly, it was similar to that type of product way before SurveyMonkey, actually. Way before that.
I think it was one of the first cloud-based market research tools. And of course, we were dealing with much older technology back then, so there were some real challenges building that. But Gav and Rob, two very talented developers, but with my market media research background, I was able to form what we call it SciSurvey, what that would look like. And we got some pretty good big clients off the back of that. So I did that for a few years, and I decided to take a break. And I had already started thinking about what I was going to do. That was actually set up a consultancy working in employee satisfaction, based in the city, actually, for banking institutions.
City of London, just to clarify that.
In the City of London, which is basically the square mile. That's where all the banking institutions are. I had contacts there. By that point, I had the knowledge and I had the desire to set up this independent consultancy. But I thought I'd just take a year out and just do something a little bit different, something completely different. And do you know what? I don't even remember how it happened. I was in the pub in my hometown, Saffron Walden, chatting to some mates, and then suddenly the idea sprung into my head, wouldn't it be great to sail across an ocean? And up to that point, I think I'd only ever done one sailing trip with one of my brothers, Marcus, and my dad. For a retirement present, we sailed across the English Channel over to Holland. Anyway, so that was my only sailing experience. So I knew that I was comfortable on boats. But I just thought that was the first challenge, was to set myself that goal of sailing across the Atlantic. And the idea really was to sail across, get to the other side, and then come back and set up my consultancy firm.
Okay.
Halfway across, though, it all changed. I had an epiphany, and it was literally, actually, geographically, it was right in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, on those big Atlantic swells that you get. I was looking out across at the sunset, and I just said to myself, do you know what? I don't want to go back and work in an office. I don't want to work in the city. I want to do something completely different. So I was thinking, well, you know, what can I do? What skills do I have that would enable me to do something completely different?
And just to clarify that, just for the people listening that are actually waking up on a Saturday morning and they've been doing their 9 to 5s or 8 to 5s and all that, but in the back of their head, they have a dream to run a company, start a company, but they also have a dream of eventually traveling the world. And like I did the backpacking thing many years ago, but you've actually taken it to a different level, which is phenomenal. So tell me a little bit more about that sort of anchor moment that you went, no pun intended, anchor moment, but at that moment when you went, this is what I want to do. This is my dream. This is exactly what is going to get me up in the morning and thrive.
Well, I think the first of all, there was that romantic side of things. I've been reading sailing novels, and in particular, Ellen MacArthur. I'd read her first autobiography, and I was really inspired by her. I thought, you know, if this little diminutive girl can, under 5 foot, can break records sailing around the world, then it must be pretty straightforward to do, you know, relatively sedate cruising. So that was the first thing I thought, well, this can be done. It's not impossible. But perhaps the most important thing is the love of my life. You know, my other half was Liz. What happened was I'd sailed to Antigua, and I met her on Christmas Day in historic Nelson's Dockyard. And we had a little holiday romance. Now, she was on a break she had a very, very high-flying sales career back in London. She worked for a Chinese silk manufacturing company. She was Almost every month she was commuting over to Hong Kong and to mainland China. She was always exhausted and tired, and so she treated herself to this break in Antigua. I, meanwhile, had just set foot on land after 23 days at sea. And we had a holiday romance, I suppose you could call it that. But we very quickly realized we had a lot in common. And even though we came from very different backgrounds, there was definitely one thing that we had in common, and that was we wanted to do something different. So the holiday romance very quickly developed into a serious relationship. And I moved back to the UK, and I think it was Liz who just said, should we buy a boat?
Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
So could you tell me about that, from buying the boat, where you bought the boat, and then how much time you spent in the place that you bought the boat?
Yeah, so we bought the boat in 2003, I think it was, in Turkey. Okay. She's a British-built boat, but it was based in Turkey. And what was also very comfortable for us was Liz's brother was married to a Turkish girl who came from Bodrum. So that really helped the process, because when we went to go and see the boat, just out of interest, just window shopping, we had an instant set of friends there. And that's probably the one and only time we've made that leap and went somewhere that was comfortable, because we already knew people there. Of course, every place we went to
could you tell me what boat you actually bought, and could you tell me what actually happened once you bought the boat and you spent a couple of years in Turkey? Then what actually happened? What was the next dream that you had, or both of you had?
Yeah, so she's actually built in Ipswich, just down the road from where we grew up.
Okay.
She's a 43-foot oyster. She's a ketch. She was 20 odd years old when we bought her, so not new, but she was in good condition and she ticked all the boxes. So, when we moved on to the boat, although I'd been delivering boats around Europe and across the Atlantic, we really didn't have much sailing experience. And I think that was one of the other things that's worth thinking about, worth bearing in mind if you're looking to do this, is, to be honest, the sailing bit is easy. The rest of it's the more difficult bit, the finances, the boat maintenance. But we spent 3 years in Turkey specifically just to sail in a comfortable area and get used to the boat and practice our sailing skills, read up on sailing, take a few courses and so on. And after about 3 years, that was when we thought, okay, I think, we're ready now to go off and do something a bit more extreme. Now, most people sail from east to west, because that's generally where the trade winds travel around the world. But since we were in Turkey, a friend of ours in Turkey said, well, why not go down the Red Sea instead? Why not go east? It's different, isn't it? So that's exactly what we did. We went down the Red Sea, through the Gulf of Aden, through past Somalia, and this was in the height of piracy, 2010, and then across the Arabian Sea and landed in India and spent 3 years in India, because we just fell in love with India. And that was one of the great things about having a boat, is you're traveling with your home.
Yeah, of course.
If you find somewhere you like, you can stop and stay there. So we did 3 years in India.
And what happened after that? So you spent 3 years in India. What was your aspirations then? What was going through your mindset at that particular time?
Well, I think a lot of people, when they think of sailing and what we call liverboarding, you become a liverboard. I think the first thing people think about is to circumnavigate. And that was on my mind to start with. It's it's a box to tick, isn't it? Let's circumnavigate. But you quickly realize, or we realized, that actually we found the travel around each country as fun, if not more fun, more motivational than ticking this box off to say, I've just done a circuit of, So we spent 3 years in India, and the only reason why we moved is because we had to haul the boat out and do boat maintenance, and there's no one in India to do that. But because we'd set off east, we thought, well, if we're going to carry on, we may as well carry on going east. And if we circumnavigate, fine, we'll do it the wrong way round. But we sailed down to the Maldives, and we hauled out there and found a few things wrong with the boat. But we then tried to sail over the equator and then across to South Africa, and it didn't go too well. We ended up with a few broken things on the boat, and decided instead to run with the southwest monsoon. So pretty heavy weather, but a much easier sail. and headed to Malaysia and Thailand because we knew this was a good place to fix the boat up. So we literally went with the winds. The winds dictated, where we went next, and spent 5 years on the west side of Malaysia Peninsula around Langkawi, Phuket in Thailand, and so on, and hauled the boat out there and did an extensive refit there.
And that's actually on your channel, isn't it? So you documented everything on your Follow the Boat YouTube channel, and it's pretty extensive. I know you've got about 50,000 followers, and hopefully you'll pick up a few followers on here as well. But in that, it gives you a sort of top level and in-depth view of what it's like to live on a boat, to sail a boat, all the countries that you visit, remote and extremely populated. And then the maintenance and what you have to do is like buying a car or a camper van, but you live in it and you have to do the maintenance. You have to clean under the inside of under the inside of the boat, as well as everything else. And it's all quite fascinating. So where are you now in the world? So you've gone from Thailand down through to Malaysia. Is that right? And now you're in Borneo. Is that right? Or you've spent time...
So we decided to just go around the outside of Sumatra, which is, of course, Indonesia's island, one of the biggest islands in the world. And we sailed down the west of Sumatra through the Mentawai Islands, which are very popular with surfers. If there's any surfers out there, they'll know the Mentawai Islands, but not really visited that much. And we sort of dropped down to Java, to Jakarta, and then came back up to Malaysia Peninsula, that's Malaysia, and then across the Anambas Islands, which are Indonesia again, and then onto the coast of Borneo. So we're now back in Malaysia, but we're on Borneo, Malaysia. So this is the sort of the northwest coast that goes up like this. Right, this second we're in Kudat, which is on the tip of Borneo. And of course, we had plans then to go to the Philippines and onwards over to Japan. But of course, current situation has put pay to that. So
and the question that is probably going to raise everyone's minds at the moment, because we're in this worldwide COVID thing, how's that affected you? And how's that affected the travel restrictions, or if there isn't any travel restrictions? What's it like over there?
It's an interesting one, Jay, because on the one hand, we can't really leave Malaysia. Well, we can leave Malaysia, but we can't come back. So, and of course, we can't go to any other countries because they're not open. So that's one of the problems. But I have to say, Malaysia has been exemplary in not only dealing with the whole situation, but also looking after people like us who are kind of stuck here. They've been really good at that. And we've got a few local people like Alvin, our friend Alvin, who's been really looking after us. So that's been great. But ironically, what happened was there used to be a rally that ran every year, and it started in the west coast of Malaysia, and it was a long rally that ran all the way through those places I just described. And then it goes up to Borneo and down the east coast of Sabah. Because of lockdown, that almost didn't happen. But they decided instead just to make it a Sabah rally. So basically, it was really open to people that were already in Sabah, the state of Sabah. And so rather than the usual 30 boats taking part in the rally, there were 6 of us, 6 boats. So we still did the last part of the rally down the east coast of Sabah, which, by the way, is amazing, absolutely amazing. One of the most beautiful places we've visited, and great people as well. And then got to the almost to the border of Indonesia, turned around and came back up. And this was all help actually with ESCOM. You saw in that video. This is the security forces who accompany us, because it can be quite dangerous there with the Filipino border and the problems that are happening over there. So and now we're hauled up on the hard. So now we've got work on the hard in the boatyard. The next question is what happens after Christmas. If borders start to open, then we could push on to the Philippines. If not, we end up staying here. It's not a bad place to be stuck.
I can imagine. And it's, as you said before we went on live, it's very hot. Very, very hot where you are now.
Yes, it's hot. And when you're on the hard, of course, you're out the water. So it's actually even hotter because you haven't got the water cooling you down. When it rains, you have to close everything, and then it's
Yeah.
hot and sweaty and rainy. But we've been doing this for a long time now. We're kind of acclimatized to it, really. So I always have a problem when I go back to the UK to visit family and have to wear socks and shoes and long trousers. I get quite uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, can you imagine? Just almost to wrap up, what I really want for the listeners to really understand is what sort of golden nuggets of advice could you feed forward to people that are sitting at home watching this or on record, and they're going, I'd love to do that. What sort of advice, like 3 tips that you could give people right now saying, I want to do this, go and do this, or this is the advice that you could give?
Okay, the first thing I would say is just do it. Literally, just do it. If you think about doing it, don't make it a long-term dream. If you are in a position to do it now, and normally that means financially, but it might be because you've got family commitments. But if you are in a position to do it now, do it now. But we know so many sailors who started this at the age of 65 plus, and you speak to them and they all say, if we were given the opportunity, we would have done it a lot earlier. So that's the first golden nugget. The second is to, if you want to do it on a sailboat, is learn to take things slowly. And, things are much more slow paced, unless, of course, you're having a cracking sail in some heavy weather. But life is relatively slow paced. But that also means being more patient when you come to do work on the boat, sourcing parts and materials, that kind of thing from around the world, getting workers in foreign places whose cultures are different. You have to learn to slow down a bit. And then the third thing, talking of cultures, is basically just be open to all new experiences and understand that although people on the surface appear to be culturally different, underneath it all, we all want the same thing. We all want a roof over our heads. We want education for our children, food on the table. And that is the same wherever we go in the world. And as long as you see people with that open mind, it's much easier to get around language barriers, for example. So just be open.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I must admit, having that open mindset does get you along in all walks of life, in your business, your personal life, and everything else. But I think you have to be completely open to that. So, life is about experience. Life is about doing something different. So the way the brain works, it search and looks for something different in life. So what you've done, you're experiencing something new every day, as opposed to the same thing, almost like Groundhog Day in certain respects. But you're waking up to a different scenery every morning, maybe a different country, a different place. You might just be there for 10 days and then you move on somewhere else, or you might be there for 1 day and then you move on. And for people to really want to elevate their life, and for people that live on LinkedIn right now or Twitter, and they want to aspire to do something different, this is something different and something that you can really expand everything in your life of what you want to do today. So, Jamie, how can people find out more about what you're doing right now?
Okay, so, we've had a blog for as long as we've been sailing. It's a very old blog called followtheboat.com. But our main thrust and a lot of what we're doing, and this is another way in which we stay motivated. That's my fourth nugget, by the way, Jay, is even whilst you're sailing around and doing all the saily things, it's very important to have interests outside of the boat itself. Really important to do that. And of course, our passion is making videos, is storytelling, basically. So, we have a YouTube sailing channel. It's called Sailing Follow the Boat. That's Follow the Boat, all one word, Follow the Boat. And, we've been putting out weekly episodes, sometimes twice a week, for the last, 5 years now.
And the good thing is you've been using lots of different cameras, 2 or 3 different drones, and you do get a feeling like you're almost there in some regards. And you're actually using, you're on the boat at the moment, and you have all the equipment around you to do whatever you need to do. That's what makes the story so compelling every time that you watch it, because it's like an emotional roller coaster ride. So I love that. I think that's really cool. So look, Jamie, I think we're pretty much out of time. I really appreciate you coming on from all the way from Borneo all the way
Always
from
good to
sunny
chat,
Dublin.
Jay. Always good to
And
chat.
I thank everyone. You've been listening to Jason Cooper and Jamie Furlong for the live chats today. And if you want to find out more about me, look, I'm online. You can see me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and wherever else. And Jamie at the YouTube channel and followtheboat.com. Thank you.
Nice one, Jay.